حور العين تناديني فدعيني أماه دعيني لتبكي دموعك يا أمي عن دربي لا لن تثنيني حور العين تناديني فدعيني أماه دعيني لتبكي دموعك يا أمي عن دربي لا لن تثنيني.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let's make dua inshallah with start. Allahumma ameen. Allahumma anta as-salam wa minka as-salam tabarakta ya dhal jalali wal ikram. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina wa shafi'ina wa habibina Maulana Muhammad wa barik wa sallam. Allahumma rabbana zidna ilman nafi'a wa amalan mutaqabbala wa rizqan wasi'a wa shifa'a min kulli da'. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana wa qina adhaban nar. فسبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين آمين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Continue our topic Islam and Muslims in the modern world. We reached challenges facing the youths in our modern society, and we were discussing the topic on drugs and alcohol in relationship to our youths. And in that discussion we have mentioned amongst the factors that what is really alcohol abuse and drug abuse in our society today, and in respect to that of our youths. And we looked at a number of factors in the relationship to this subject, and we're close to the conclusion of this subject matter before us here today. And when we look at this, and we looked at alcohol, we looked at what the Quran tells us. We say that it's rijzum min ash-shaytan, min amal ash-shaytan. It is one of those tools of the devil that he used to destroy our actions. So once a person gets indulged in alcohol, the outcome is that that person is going to be involved in the work of the shaitan. There's no goodness that will come out of that person except that they're involved in such an situation where they're actually affected by the use of the alcohol. So when we looked at it from that angle, we saw what is mentioned in relationship to that. And we looked at a number of hadiths that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned about in relationship to that alcohol and the relationship with alcohol. And we looked at this aspect. The one relationship for us is when it comes to our youths today, we say most of them are now pharmacists, druggists, because they are actually pushing drugs on the street. But they're not qualified to push drugs, but they're pushing drugs on the street. So we have a lot of our young men and women who are actually drug pushers. The fact is that out of recent time, only today by this, I think there's a organization that deals on radio and on other situations where deal with young pushers and drug abusers and so on. And they have only highlighted the issue of drugs and alcohol in the universities. Nowhere else but here within our own society, in our own country, those students who they have found, and by survey and by investigation and looking into the situation, that there are many students in the tertiary system in our society who are consuming drugs and drinking alcohol. And they are going to actually go into the environment and see what they can actually do to assist and facilitate and help students who are in this situation. So imagine some students are using this as a means of waking, are using this for some means of clearing their head and not being in stress. But education was never meant to be like that, So you have to use some drugs to study, or you have to use something to clear your head to study. That has nothing to do with education. Education is supposed to be something that is easygoing, nice to learn, joyful. But if it becomes something that is stressful, then what is the purpose of education? What is the benefit at the end of the day from education? So if drugs has to be used as a means to learn, then something is wrong with the process, because then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not create the human beings with that faculty of learning in that manner. No, that you need drugs or alcohol or something to learn. In fact, that doesn't do anything to benefit. When you're finished with that, you actually get worse off than you actually when you started. And I was just discussing this weekend on a program that once a person starts to use drugs, you start when you were small. Some people would start when they're young, start smoking a little cigarette, a small little the cigarette, what's it called a long time? The zut, they call it. You know, somebody just threw it aside and the young boy will go and pick it up and smoke that. After a while, he started to smoke one whole cigarette. And before you know it, at the end of the day, he's actually smoking a whole pack of cigarette. So it starts from one little small piece of cigarette. And it ends up with that person actually using a whole cigarette. And when we look at the issue today, you know, that if imagine the people or the place where you expect to have a level of people who are in a higher level of education, tertiary education, and they are using drugs and alcohol at a level that is so alarming that, you know, we can recognize that there's a problem. I'm not saying that every one of them is doing it, but there's a level of it that is existing there with other issues as well. But if this is happening there, what do you expect the workforce that is supposed to be educated from these tertiary education coming out to be at the end of the day? What your workforce is going to be? You know, a drug working workforce. Imagine you have a operator of equipment or some person working in the hospital and they come into work with 3/4 of the time smoking 2 or 3 joints, probably taking as 2 or 3 sips of cocaine and then going to work. Right? You know how you're going to operate equipment halfway drunk? A person driving drunk, far less for operating equipments and working with people and their lives. You know, that is something even far greater of a danger than for their own self, but for other people's life at risk. So that is a situation that is alarming, that if we have to create such people who would work in an environment and bring such harm to other people. So here we are saying that drugs and alcohol in our tertiary system has become part and parcel of a life that is endangering for the students as well as for those of whom they will have to in the future look after. So when we're mentioning about the street pushers today, we're talking about the fact that we have young boys and girls, and it is evident in many shows of or radio programs, you will hear people talking about this particular issue, that the drug pushers to peddle their drugs in the streets and in the environment where they have young people. They don't give adults to transport the drugs anymore. They use young children as a decoy of transporting their drugs. Right? That is the level of where we have reached, abusing the rights of children in allowing them to use what? To take or transport and sell drugs. And they are the younger pushers in our society today. Right? Because police would at least detect that they will have. There are few of them who are actually recognized as young people who are actually doing that work. And you know that's a real sad situation to see, even in our own environment, the level of street pushers that we have who are young children. So in a situation like this, we have to warn and ensure that our children are not using drugs, and the next aspect is that they're not selling drugs. Some parents, their children, and you know, this is their children, and they know that their children are selling drugs and are pushing drugs in the presence of the person who is supplying them with these drugs, and they will not say a word. Right? In Islam, it is prohibited to use and to sell. It is prohibited to use and to sell drugs. So a person who has Iman, we know, and our Muslims cannot say, well, I'm not smoking, that's not a haram for me, but I could sell it to somebody else. We cannot do that. So if you're walking down by the seashore and you find a bag of marijuana and you say, well, this is my profit for this week, you can't sell that cocaine, that whole cocaine bag of marijuana and say, well, I use it, I just sell it out and I get rid of it. No, we can't get rid of the marijuana, even if you get it by the seashore. We cannot even involve ourselves in selling it because it's illegal for one in the country, and it's illegal against the laws of Islam to actually push or sell drugs in any form of the nature that is what that drug we're talking about that is causing and befogging our minds, or the minds of children and those who are actually using it. What do we recommend after discussing this topic for a length of time? You know, as parents and people in a community, drug is a problem. We can't deny that. It is existing, and in any part of the world there's a problem. Even from within the prison system, imagine inside jail and you're still getting drugs to use. So you know, this is far outcry. You know, that a person who is incarcerated could still find drugs. I mean, that coming across the radio, the television, I tell you that these fellas and them still getting drugs in there. Who carried inside for them? Where they get growing inside there? It can't be like growing inside there. Somewhere they have to begin coming inside the prisons. So if it cannot even stem within the system, it means that from the system itself to the entire society, there's a problem with drugs. So for it to be so much open to the society, it is of what? A grand disaster that is before our hands. Even only this weekend gone, there was where they had an open march for the cannabis, marijuana, in Port of Spain area there, promoting for the legalization of marijuana, right? Now, and some people actually smoking it on that. I don't know how come they didn't get arrested anyway. But, we have to look at two aspects of this. If a person looks at what is happening with drugs in our society, and we look at recommendations, and you ask yourself the question, as parents and as a society, if you cannot differentiate between the use of alcohol that is legal and the use of marijuana that is illegal, because both of them in Islam is what? Haram. The difference now is that the legal drug that we call, which is haram in Islam, alcohol, you could buy it openly, but there's no war. No rum shop owners come together and fight each other for turf. So you can find in one street about 10 or 10 in one street alone, and nobody fighting over who have a rum shop, or a bar, as we would say. But for illegal drug of marijuana, you'll find what? There's a fight to who will what? Turf, and who will earn this street and that street and so on. So it might be cheaper for the institution or the state to actually legalize it and sell it for whoever want to use it, because it make a difference anyway. Everybody gets it anyway. Down to the child in the school, it is said from many people who have investigated situations in school, they say it's so easy for you to access drugs in the school, marijuana. They could buy it and they know which student to go and get it from. Right? So it's not hard for them to get the marijuana in school. Everybody in every street knows you can get marijuana to buy. So why hide it? Just might as well what? Make it legal, and the government probably makes some money out of it. Like Canada now is actually planting cannabis in a big way. Since last year, actually cultivating for whatever medicinal purpose and recreation to some extent level and purpose they're using to use it for. So the whole world is shifting towards using back marijuana as part of their system. Now, it is not that we are advocating or saying go ahead and do it, but we're trying to say probably it might lessen the amount of crimes that we have. It might lessen the amount of dangers we might find out of actually having it illegal. In one way, though, we may be able to control some level of it. Whether we think or try to stop it is not possible anymore. The fact is that somebody using it only for the purpose of what they desire having it. So they have a natural inclination towards it. They cannot stop it from happening. So if we look at our society, we would ask ourselves what to do. Continue to fight a war against something that is impossible to win in the situation that we're in, because you have not won the hearts of the people. If they don't have fear for Allah for anything, they don't even fear the police, they don't even fear the prisoners, they don't fear nothing. So they use drugs anyway. So if they have no fear for Allah, the Lord of the world who created them, that something is haram, they go stay away from it. This is haram, stay away from it. They don't have that fear. They have no fear for anything. That's why corruption is so rampant within our society. That's why stealing, robbery, murder, drug abuse, alcohol abuse, everything is so apparent and easy in our society that as though every evil has become a norm and easy to accept. So it is a situation not only for our state, but many other countries in the Caribbean and in the worldwide. They realize that this is impossible to police, because if you put a police by everybody's house to stop them from smoking, well, I would say, if you can't stop them in the prison, far less for outside. If you can't stop them there, they're in a cell, you're actually locked away, and you can't stop them from getting drugs to use. Then what about the streets? Right, the average is we have about 10,000 or 7,000 police in the entire country to ban all this. This is impossible. Right? They cannot even do anything to even stop or amend any problem with drugs or alcohol in the entire country, because the problem is far greater than that. The problem is that we lack the level of Iman. So when we see this is happening, we have to ask ourselves whether or not this is the right move or not. It might as well be legal because they already legalized gambling, so no longer people go and play what? They call it a long time, it's called it way instead of play. All in the corner in some block hiding the player mark. And now they're legalizing, now they're making millions and millions of dollars out of it. Although it is what? Haram for us to do that, but for the entire society has become what? A norm. It was in their blood. They were already doing it all over the place anyway. So that shows the further decay in our society when it comes to adopting what? Wrong and making it a halal perspective in their life. Halal for them. It's good for them to do, but for a Muslim, a believer, it is haram and impossible for us to live and do such actions as a believer. So that has become normal. Bisexual, gay relationship has become something normal as well. So these things keep on adding to what? What is evil in our society? The end result is what? What we are seeing. In other words, what we see happening in our society today of the levels of crime and the level of evil is the direct outcome of the nature and behavior for society. The very few who are not involved in this cry out every day for some help, cry out for protection, cry out to be safeguarded. But it is a situation that when you live in a situation, if you live in a street filled with snakes and serpents of all kinds and all types of deadly insects and things that can harm you, how can you survive? It's almost impossible to what? Not get bit one day. How dangerous it is in our society. Right? People cry out for almost anything of the level of dangers that they are living in today. And it's very sad to see, but what can we do? Because we have not put our feet down, or we cannot, or we are afraid to do that because of the level of harm that probably come our way. So, what should we recommend? Knowing that is the situation, is as though people say, well, better you put your hand up and done with it. If you put your hands up and say, well, that is it, they win, we lose, definitely, you'll find yourself in a situation and you say, they never come at me, so me ain't bothering. If I do them, they won't do me anything. At the end of the day, what happens? They're coming straight to you. You cannot escape. So at the end of this, drugs and the abuse of alcohol will definitely reach our way. So now, let's look at a recommendation. From Islam, what does Islam teaches us? What does Islam teach us in relationship to deal with the issue of drugs and alcohol in your home, or in your community, or within your masjid? If there is any solution to this, what would you recommend for your children? What is the education? What is the level that we need to go at to prevent this from happening? You see, we live in a society that is so mixed and so complex with all types of religious persuasions and people who don't follow any religion whatsoever, and they deal with all these issues as though they are non-issues. So what we might call an issue is a non-issue for other people. The only issue that they have is the crime. The only issue that they have is the violence. The only issue that they have will be the robberies and all these different things. That's all they have issues with. But when it comes to the relationship now of the actual immoral behavior that is leaning towards these crimes and different types of bad behavior in our society, they have nothing to say. So what does Islam have to say? What does Islam tell us? Firstly, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives to us and states to us clearly that from all that we know about what is alcohol, ma askara kathiran faqaliluha haramun. Whether it's plenty of alcohol you take and it will cause you to become drunk or intoxicated, a smaller portion of it is just as the same, haram. That's the first thing we have to understand. That in Islam, it gives an indication, a small amount or a large amount is straight off the bat. So the first principle that we have to establish within ourselves is that none of us will consume alcohol in a small amount. You say, take a small drink now, man. I ain't going to do nothing. You know, you have the cold. Or you have something, you're going through a bad spell. Take a small drink. Nothing will happen to you. From Islamic perspective, what we are told by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what intoxicates in a large amount or a large proportion, a small amount is also what? Prohibited. So no small amount, no big amount. The first thing is that we let ourselves and our children and our community know that it is totally haram to consume alcohol or use drugs of any nature that will befog or cause harm to ourselves. The next thing is the environment. The environment. The environment that we live in and the people that we associate ourselves with is also a factor. In Islam, we are told in Islam that we should stay away from those things that we have doubt in and those things that we have no doubt in. We should be clear on that aspect of it. And then our association with people, we should know who are our real friends and who are going to lead us towards the path of shaitan, who are going to destroy us. Shaitan calls us towards what? That which is false, that which is wrong, and that is what is haram. And we did mention in this session, or the prior session, that if you're going with your friends, and your friends say, well, come to the bar, and I'll go to the bar, and in the bar, we'll sit down in the bar. And I say, well, I'm not drinking nothing hard, I will just drink a little soft drink with them while I'm drinking the normal thing. If that is a friendship that will take you to such a place, and you're only drinking a soft drink, we say once you step foot in there, you actually stepping foot in the environment where shaitan has already have a grip and a hold on you. If such a friend is a friend, then that friend is actually destroying your relationship with your real connection to Allah. Then you say, well, what do you want me to do? This is my friend, I know that person again. If I give up this friend, who am I going to have again? Nobody is going to like me again. This is the person I work with, and if I don't be with them, when I go to work, they're going to heckle me and give me trouble. That's some of the situations that we face with, that the young men and young women, they are challenged with the fact that they are in a situation like this. So where do they get that relationship? How do we extend that as a community to let them know that there are other avenues in Islam that we can utilize to benefit from, rather than finding ourselves in an environment like that? And many of our youths today, the reason why they get caught up in the use of drugs and alcohol is because of their association, their relationship, and who they associate with. And that is the danger, what we are told about. So, knowing this, we should also know the law. What is that law? That all the above mentioned and many other substances are in Islam that we call drugs, all these substances are forbidden in Islam. They are also illegal in the US, North America, and all over the world. It is harmful, but nowadays, well, I suggest we have plenty parts of the world are going to make marijuana legal. So, that got to change. Apart from the fact that you are accountable to Allah for what you do and could very well be punished in this life and in the next for using drugs and alcohol, you could also be faced legal penalties according to the laws. Now, yes, in our prison system, we see that many people get locked up for a joint and they are charged for a joint. All right? So legally, yes, to some extent, no. But once this law passes, it will be all okay. Depending on where you are caught, you could face high fines and jail time. Beware of the risk. And all these are things that you actually have to let your children know about the use of drugs and the environment of drugs. That what can happen, because if you get caught with drugs, at the end of the day, what's going to happen? So from an Islamic perspective, in an Islamic state, it is prohibited to what? Use drugs of any kind. And in fact, in those states, the penalty for actually using drugs or selling drugs, if you are known to be a drug pusher, it's life imprisonment. There's no escape from it. It's life imprisonment. Once you are caught to be selling drugs, that's it. Life imprisonment. And pray not to don't get the death penalty as well. But that is the law when it comes to the relationship of actually pushing drug in an Islamic state. Drinking or using drugs increases the risk of injury, car crashes and falls, burns, drowning and suicide, and all linked to the use of drugs. Educating your children about this is something impossible, that they're saying that, well, they can say, well, I take a little thing, a little this or a little that. No. The risk involved is that they can hurt themselves and hurt other people at the same time. So, as Muslims, it is our responsibility. It is our responsibility to take charge of, giving advice and nasihat to our community at large, and especially to our young boys and girls, because today in our society, we will tell ourselves, nah, them is young Muslim, them real, okay, them good. It's good, yeah, but you rarely see yet what's going on outside there. You haven't have a taste of the real environment with our young Muslim boys and girls in that environment that they're living in. It's very challenging. I just can't say blaming them, but we have to know that this is what the situation is. The fact remains for us that, like the laws of the land that know that it is illegal to use drugs, in Islam we say it is also illegal to what? Use these drugs. So whilst the state and the laws are still inclined to show that there is a level of prohibition in Islam, we also say that it is also prohibited to use these drugs. And when you use this, it is actually what? Harmful and dangerous, and hence that's why they try to prevent it from happening. But it has gone so far that it's impossible to actually stop it. Now, alcohol. You know what word is alcohol? According to the Oxford Dictionary and according to our own language, alcohol is an Arabic word. Right? Alcohol comes from the word khul. So you can check the dictionary, go back, and you'll see that its origin is an Arabic word. Khul means that which is fermented from fruits and grapes and dates and whatever you have. So it comes from that word khul. In Arabic we call it khamr and khul. So it is a fermented drink, or a drink that is made from these things. And that is where the word actually for this alcohol and khul, its origination and its stem is from that part of the world anyway, where the Lord had actually made prohibition on it. So the word alcohol is an Arabic word, which comes from khul. It's in its essence as well, when we teach in recommendation, we should let our children know that this is not something new to the people prior to the deen of Islam, and even in the early stage of Islam, until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the order for its prohibition, then it became prohibited. But during the early stages, we knew that the Muslims, there were some of them who were still using alcohol while before they go to pray. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the order that they should not come to pray what? Sukara, drunk. And then after the law came that they should not consume alcohol, and we did all the hadiths in relationship to that. So the word khul and the relationship towards Islam is where its foundation is for its prohibition. Then something that was made prohibited in this deen from the very early stage of the deen, or Islam, continues to remain prohibited. So what the world is disguising and bringing forward today as alcohol is nothing as a word that is different to what is seen in Islam. What we are seeing is that they have taken something that was in Jahiliyyah, ignorance, prior to Islam, that was used as a means of destructive element of society, that Islam came and said that it should no longer be used, and they bring it back into a system of usage. And from all other religious persuasion, it is also what? Prohibited. It is prohibited. Do you think you would see that they will, in any of the religious other institutions, people will just go and start to consume alcohol just like that crazy? No one will do that. So it's not a matter about talking about religion, that some religion allow and some religion don't allow. No religion in its principal form allows the use of alcohol. So then we ask ourselves, who uses alcohol, and if you have a religious persuasion? So it defies everyone that believes in something, whatever they believe in, they defy that it's a habit and a behavior that is out of what? Their persuasion or their beliefs. And hence, we say that you cannot look at someone else and say, well, I no longer Muslim because I feel them, other people I'm allowed to drink, so then go drink and then go to church or go to temple or go and do this. Why can't I do the same thing as a Muslim? Because Islam, the principle which we are trying to give as a recommendation to our children, is that the principle involved in the deen is that Inna Allah yuhibbu tawabin wa yuhibbul mutatahhirin. Allah loves those who make tawbah and those who keep themselves pure. And alcohol does not give you purity. It contaminates your blood. Alcohol is made from fermentation, something that is very, bad, foul, not good to even drink. Yes, they will say, well, now we have a standard that we ferment it and we make it in a proper way that you can actually use it. Still, the effects of it, no matter what you do to upgrade the standard of it, the effects remain the same. It's the same thing you call what? Alcohol. The whole didn't change. What changed is probably the quality. And the quantity got more now too. So the quality and the quantity increase in a different way. But what remains permanent is the effects of that alcohol. It still makes you drunk. It still befogs your mind. And that is the danger that comes out of alcohol. So the recommendation to our children and to our society at large is that in Islam, we have to show these benefits are no way near to the dangers that come out of alcohol. And the benefits that we mentioned, they were smaller, the Quran mentioned, but the dangers are far way greater. So one of the things we say also is play it safe. Play it safe. One incident of drug use could make you do something that you will regret for the rest of your life. The day you might be under the influence of alcohol, you could do something with drugs, you could do an action that day will never be the same again after that. Because people under the influence do things and are involved in actions that they cannot tell. Some women get involved with people and men and young men who are using drugs, innocent girls involved with men who are using drugs, young men, and they are actually raped and abused under the influences. When they come out of this, then they realize what condition they are in after that. Then they regret for the rest of their life that this was a result of what? Trying out one joint or one sniff of cocaine. And they say, well, just try it. And they're forced to put in an environment where they have to actually do this. And this actually destroys their entire life. For a male, there can be other aspects as well that can put them in a dangerous position. And just imagine if we cannot understand, play it safe. Don't get close. La taqrabu. Do not come close to this thing. What is? Alcohol and drugs. Do the smart thing. Using drugs, put your health and your education, your family ties and your social life at risk. We see many, many people today, they lose their jobs. They lose their homes out of drugs. They sell away everything in their house because of drugs. They sell out their families. They sell their wives into prostitution out of drugs. They sell their daughters into prostitution out of the use of drugs. They allow men to come into their homes and infiltrate their entire family life because they are so much intoxicated and inculcated into the drugs that they will allow everything to happen to them just as long as they can have their drugs. Right? There are people who would actually lock their children out of their homes because out of the fear that they will thief out everything inside the house and sell it just to get drugs. This is the danger that comes out of it. So we have to let them know that they cannot actually be in an environment like that and beg and safeguard our children that they should not find themselves in that position. That if they use drugs, these are the eventual outcome and outfall out of drugs. Get that individual, be it your child, your spouse, whoever it is, get them involved in the masjid, get them involved in counseling, get them involved with somebody to see them. Don't stay quiet and ashamed and say, well, he's a Muslim, but if how want to tell the imam that boy? Well, let me tell you, if we don't know, in every masjid, every imam and everyone involved in the masjid know everybody in the community, and everybody know whose children and whose family are also involved in some extent of drugs and not involved in something else. No, don't think it's not known. The fact is that sometimes the imam might feel a little too ashamed or feel too pushy to go and start to get involved in the lives of people because they go say, the first thing your imam say, I feel that I figure out that the son using drugs. Who, my son? They go say, nah, not my son. My son don't use drugs. How you could say that, imam? Now, how you could say that? But we know. We know, but the fact is that if you go out forward and you make this claim, this is what the result will be like. Many will want to deny and they want to hide and feel ashamed But this is not something to feel ashamed about, my dear brothers and sisters. If you don't understand how dangerous it is, that you should be glad that an opportunity comes along that you can actually say something like this. There are people who would call and say, Imam, Maulana, this is the situation with my son or my daughter. Don't let them know I tell you, but this is I want to deal with it. Don't let them know, but I want you to help me deal with it because I can't deal with it. There's a need for help, but the parents themselves cannot deal with it because they'll put their parents into what? Disrepute. They can put their life of their parents in danger. That is how far it goes with the relationship with this drug and the situation with drugs in our home and in our society. Think twice about what you are advertising when you buy and wear t-shirts, hat pins, or jewelry with a marijuana leaf on it. You know, some fellas just put what? A marijuana leaf on the windscreen and they're driving down the road. Like, come on, be real. What you're advertising, what you're selling. You know, whether we have a t-shirt and it has some kind of emblem of some alcohol drink, or you have some jewelry you're wearing because it's something that's showing that, all right, they have a marijuana leaf on the jewelry, and you're showing off these things. What are you really selling? What image are you giving to other people? We who are the parents or the leaders in our community, or who recognize ourselves, there are children and there are youths amongst us who will be looking at these things and say, well, if them feel it so good, they will not actually do more than that. So we might set the trend that is further in a degeneration for our children. And remember, when this happens to our children and they get accustomed to this environment, they further go into a situation where they actually promote something and cause further harm and danger to everyone else. So you are promoting, but they further promote it in a different direction. They have an imagination of their own too, you know. So you can imagine sometimes we cannot even come close to their foresight and their thinking and their conversation when it comes to the use of drugs and the relationship to drugs. This is how dangerous it is. Children today have discovered different ways of using same canned Coke and bottled Coke, soft drinks and so on, and drinks of the sodas and so on, and they're having them, and they're actually putting into these drinks other substance and getting ahead and in class. Right? So they're drunk in class as well, while class is going on. So we thinking that they're not in that environment. In schools, they're actually using these types of things, and everything is normal around them, but they're actually halfway drunk through the way of school. So remember, you have to face your problem using drugs won't help you escape your problem. A child have a problem at home, father and mother fighting, and have issues at home. You have to let your son know, or your daughter know, that your problem, don't let your child use drugs because of you. Your family issues at home, some problem they're having at home, whatever the issue is, never let it be that your child has to find someone else there. They push outside and say, well, don't write your parents and them can help you. Come and take a little pull on the side. Or your friend in school say, take a little drink on the side. That is solving your problem. Facing the issue with your family is important. Don't allow them to take these things and use it as an excuse. And neither should you use these things as an excuse to deal with your problems at home. So remember, you don't need drugs or alcohol. If you think everybody doing it, no, you're wrong. You tell yourself, I'm a Muslim and I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do drugs or alcohol. And if your friends come to you and say, well, I'm a Muslim and I'm not using drugs and alcohol, you have to build this strength within your children that when they are confronted with this situation, they tell them as it is, I'm a Muslim and I fear my Allah and I will not use drugs and alcohol. That should be a campaign within every masajid and every community to build the strength in our community so that they can say no. They can say no to drugs and alcohol. One hadith which we'll close with on this topic, it mentions here from the Prophet ﷺ in relationship to drugs and alcohol. It says in this hadith that لُعِنَتْ خَمْرُ عَلَى عَشْرَةِ أَوْجِهٍ بِعَيْنِهَا وَآصِرِهَا. The Prophet ﷺ mentions concerning the use of alcohol that it is reported in relationship to this that there are people whom are cursed by Allah in relationship to the use of alcohol. Who are they? The one who makes the wine itself. The wine itself, lu'ina li'ayniha, the wine itself is cursed. Wa asiriha, and the one who squeezes the wine, the one who squeezes the juice to make the wine. The one whom actually it is squeezed for. Allah curses that person as well. Who it is squeezed for? The one who sells it. Ba'iha, the one who sells it. Wa asiriha, and the one who buys it. The one who buys and the one who sells. As well, it is mentioned, the one who carries it, who transports it, is also one of those who are cursed. And it is also the one whom it is carried to. And the one to whom consumes its price. In other words, the one who, after selling it, takes the money, buys some food, and eats the same food, he's also what? Lu'ina, cursed from that money. So you cannot actually be running a business selling drugs and minding your family, because that is cursed. You see, that's the only job I have. So you're going to plant marijuana, you could plant something else, you could sell something else. It mightn't have the same amount of money and you mightn't get the fast turnover, but at least you get something that is what? Halal. And it is said, the one who drinks it, mean you buy something of it, and the one who pours it out. All of these are the ones who are cursed. So it's handlers, it's sellers, it's producers, the one who transport it, the one who actually what? Do the business, the food you buy from it, the things you drink from it. All of these things are the ones who Allah say they are cursed in relationship to the use of drugs and alcohol. So my dear brothers and sisters, this topic is a very vast topic and a very wide topic. And what I did was just barely touch the surface of the issue that is before our hand. And it is a sad situation that is before us in relationship to this particular issue of drugs and alcohol in our community and our country at large today. Today we are grappling with it, but if we don't make an effort now to make a change in our homes and in our community at large with it, and we don't come up and step up to the plate as the masjid is, and our homes as fathers and mothers, then we are going to have a real problem. And children in particular, be brave enough, speak to your parents, let them know this person come up to you and they want to sell you drugs. Let them know that if you have someone in your community come and tell you about alcohol, come out and say it towards your parents. And parents will be afraid to confront the issue. If you cannot handle it on your own, get help and deal with it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through His infinite mercy make it easy for us and protect us from the harms and the tricks of the shaitan in relationship to this particular vice that shaitan uses to lure people into the fire of hell. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us and save our children and our community from this great harm, inshallah. Sadaqallah, sadaqah Rasulul Kareem. Let's make dua, inshallah. اللهم امين اللهم انت السلام ومنك السلام تباركت يا ذا الجلال والاكرام اللهم صل على سيدنا وشفيعنا وحبيبنا ومولانا محمد وبارك وسلم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا إننا آمنا فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وقنا عذاب النار فسبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
إني ألقى الإناس في صومي وصلاتي ودعائي للرحمن وجميع الطاعات. في صومي وصلاتي ودعائي للرحمن وجميع الطاعات.